Hello, good afternoon. My name is Małgorzata Kurzępa. I'm a director and founder of company Fairhouse Investments, the company which invests in properties in UK for over 7 years now. Usually I'm coming to you in Sunday afternoon with an update what is going on in at the property market currently, but because nothing really interesting happened in the last week, no updates, no important changes, I wanted to tell you about something else. So today it would be the first part of the information for the people who just recently or some time ago purchased the property which they want to rent, and they are not sure what should they do. And of course, you can always use the agency, and I strongly advise to the people without experience to use letting agent or letting agency. But if you want to know more, I would be more than happy to share it with you. This video was inspired by a person who just realized that he wants to know more about the rules, how to prepare the rental property for rent. So let's say you just purchased the property, and what's the next step? So very important thing is the insurance. I strongly advise because you have to buy your insurance before you purchase the property, before the completion. The insurance have to be in place. So I strongly advise you to buy a landlord insurance. The landlord insurance, which covers not only includes not only building insurance, but also landlord content insurance, public liability insurance, and rent guarantee insurance. You will have all four in one, and you will be ready to rent your property. The second thing you have to have is a consent to let from the freeholder. If you purchase the house and you are the freeholder, there is no problem with it. But if you purchase a flat and you only a leaseholder and someone else is a freeholder, then you have to be sure that you are allowed to rent this property, because some freeholders put restrictions on the leasehold and some properties cannot be rent. So please double check. Your solicitor should check it for you, but you have to be sure. If you purchase the property with buy-to-let mortgage, again, your lender has to be aware of the fact that you purchase it as a rental property. As I said, if you purchase it with buy-to-let mortgage, it should be obvious. But if you purchase, for example, for cash, if you pay cash, you bought from auction, this is not obvious. You have to check if you are allowed, formally you are allowed to rent your property. The third thing, some places, some councils expected every landlord to be registered as a landlord. So in some places like Manchester, for example, you have to register and you have to purchase the license. And other places introduced recently something called selective licensing. I truly believe that selective licensing is put in places where there is there are many tenants, and they want to be sure that the properties which are for rent, they meet the standard, and they are only good properties which are prepared for the tenants. So for example, one of my property is in Leeds, and from beginning of January 2020, each landlord which owns the property in Hare Hills or Beeston, two parts of Leeds, he has to be registered and he has to have selective license. This license in this case cost £825, and it's cover a period of 5 years. So In case if you can consider purchasing a property, you have to be aware of the fact that some places could be under selective licensing, and please double check if this could be a case for you, because recently I talked to a friend who purchased a property. The price was actually quite good, so I think at the end of the day he would be happy with the entire deal. But the previous landlord, the previous vendor was selling because of the selective licensing introduced in this area. So please double check such things like selective licensing, and if you have to be licensed as a landlord to rent your property. As I said, this is usually not a big deal. If your property is nice and clean and well maintained, you should have no issues to get this license, but you have to be aware that you have to pay for it. In a case, if you want to rent a property which was your residential property and now you decided to move to another place, and you still want to rent this property, you don't want to sell, there are two things you have to do. First of all, you have to apply for consent to let from your lender, because if you have a residential mortgage, now you want to switch to buy-to-let mortgage, and this is the second thing. You have to switch your mortgage. In a residential mortgage, you usually put 10% of deposit. In buy-to-let mortgage, you have to put 25% of deposit. So if you own your property for a long time, usually you already repaid a quarter of its value, so it shouldn't be a problem. But if you purchased it recently and, for example, it's only repaid like 12% or 15%, you have to be aware of the fact that you have to repay the difference between 25 and 10 or current percent of the value of the property if you change from residential mortgage to buy-to-let mortgage. The positive thing about it is that usually in residential mortgage you pay the value is is repayment plus interest. In buy-to-let, you could get interest only mortgage, so your monthly payment would be lower. 5.5. It doesn't no matter if you own your property under your private name or you own via limited company, you have to inform HMRC that you became a landlord and you will have income from your property, because you will have to pay tax from it. 6. If you plan to rent the property later, and for example you purchase it and it needs a renovation, refurbishment, some changes, you want to build extension, loft, anything that extend your personal or your company responsibility for the property, you have to be aware that for this period of time you would also be responsible for bills. It would be council tax, it would be water, it would be gas, electricity, sometimes internet. So be aware that if you don't find your tenant in a week or two, you have to move all the bills to your name, your personal, your company name, depends how you own the property. This is why, if we talk about internet, of course, I think it would be ridiculous to buy internet immediately. You just rather wait with this one for the tenant when they move, they moved in and they would be responsible for their own internet. But with council tax, water, electricity and gas, you have to pay them until the property would be rented. Remember that about council tax, some councils, if the property is under renovation, they give you a discount, for example 50%. Some council charge twice as much when the property is not occupied. So again, please double check with your local council how much you have to pay, how you have to pay. Be aware about your responsibilities. Number 7, when you purchase the property, you should receive EPC, Energy Performance Certificate, and gas certificate from the previous owner. Sometimes the gas certificate expires and you have to apply for the new one. EPC certificate, Energy Performance Certificate, from 1st of April 2018, it has to be has E at least level for the new if you rent the property, but for the existing contracts, you have to have EPC at the level E from 1st of April 2021. So for now, it's only for new property, for new tenancies, but for the existing tenancies, you still have 1 year. 1 year, yeah, slightly less than 1 year to increase it to level E. A gas certificate, you have to have a new one every, you have to update it every year. The cost is around £100. For EPC, it's around £50. For EPC you apply every 10 years, for gas certificate every year. The third thing, which is comparatively new, is electricity safety certificate, which is valid for 5 years and is mandatory to be in place from 1st of July 2019. As I said, 5 years, and the cost is between 100 and 250 pounds. It depends on the size of your property. Fire safety, smoke alarms. So according to law, each room in the property which use solid fuel needs to have a smoke fire alarm. However, the solid fuel means coal or wood, which is most unlikely, or only few properties still have them. I assume if you have a proper fireplace. So in my properties, I have a smoke alarm at each level, plus in a kitchen where there is an oven. Just to be sure, because you're responsible for checking if they operate properly, you can make aware your tenant to double check, and if it's working, it's enough to push the button. If it's beeping like ee, like crazy, it means it's working. The last thing I want to mention is the certificate for the furniture. So according to Furniture and Furnishing Safety regulations, from 1988, each piece of furniture has to have a certificate. It's except the stories and carpets. So everything what we're moving, everything what we consider as a furniture needs to have a certificate. Currently in UK, it's difficult to buy furniture without a certificate. Usually each piece of furniture has a tag on its back. But if you consider buying used furniture, or you transfer furniture from abroad, for example, you have to be aware of this certificate. If a piece of furniture has no certificate, it shouldn't be allowed in a rental property. I think this is all. These are most things you have to double check before when you're preparing your property for the rental. And as I said, I strongly advise, if you have no experience or very little experience, I strongly advise you to use the letting agency. They will do all the work for you. They will take care of the searches on the new potential tenant. They will take care of the deposit. It would be properly put into the deposit scheme. They will take care of, they will stay in touch with the tenant, and whatever happens, they would be informed first, and they could do some repairs on your behalf. Usually you have to pay for it, or they inform you and you could do some work by yourself on your own behalf. Usually they charge between 9 and 12% plus VAT, but it includes finding the tenants and taking and all maintaining the property. So it's up to you if you think it's too much, too much, or it's just nothing. But as I said, with the lack of experience, it's better to use the agency, at least at the beginning. When you get more experience, when you have more properties, you would be happy to do the maintenance by yourself. You're more than welcome. You will keep this money, but especially if the property is far away, it's not in your neighborhood, I think it's just a must. So thank you very much. I think this is all I wanted to tell you. The second part, next week, I want to tell you more what to do if you own the property and you want to rent it, but you're not happy to use the agency. You want to do everything by yourself. For now, that's it about preparing the property for the rental. Some other things. 2 weeks ago, I told you about the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which is a very good one for the beginning of your investor journey. Today, I want to tell you about something different. So first of all the books I'm talking about are the books which I have read. Not someone told me it's a good one, not that I've heard it's a good one, not that I've seen some quotations from them. These are books I read, and I strongly feel they have good influence on my mindset. So this one is not about property, it's not about investing, it's about relations. So it's been written by a couple, Barbara and Alan Pease, and its title is Why Men Don't Listen and Women Cannot Read Maps. Believe me, it helps to understand why women versus men brain is working. I don't know, it's brain heart, how we cooperate with each other. And believe me, it really influences your everydays, not only the business, but it would help, because as I said, relationship is important everywhere in everyday's life, and in business as well. So thank you very much. That's it for today. I wish you a wonderful afternoon, and I hope to see you next week, guys. So it was Małgorzata Kurzępa from Fair House Investments. Thank you very much. Bye bye.